Says we are now live. Hello, I'm James George, and welcome to our fifth episode of My Neighborhood Guide, The Lockdown. And each episode, we're going to be talking to a different local San Diego business owner and see how, if they are coping and adapting to the current situation, and how we can support our local businesses. This week, I am joined by Jeycob, Carlson, and how should I describe you, Jeycob?
Well, filmmaker would cover all the bases, but I spend most of my time doing cinematography, director of photography, commercials, documentaries. It's always different.
Yeah, and the funny thing is we know we've got internet connection problems, and this is one of the joys of everyone working from home at the moment. So I do apologize if we cut out, etc. But let's get going. First of all, how are you? And I'd like to know, how has this affected you and your business?
Yeah, well, it all went away. So that's the short of it. There was a few stragglers, people in denial. Jobs were canceled sort of at the last minute. I had plane flights booked and hotels booked, and people cast. I mean, it was gearing up to be my busiest part of the year, and about 2 or 3 months booked out, and then over a week or two, everything went away.
So what type, whereabouts were you going? What were these type of jobs that you were actually booked to do?
Yeah, so the first one was Toyota Highlander commercial in Bend, Oregon. And we had a couple things for Toyota, one in San Diego, one in Bend, and then another program show for Panera called Food Interrupted. We did these a year or two ago, a series called Food Interrupted. And we meet with different food related people, like restaurateurs and chefs and celebrities who had interest in food. And they all each one has a topic, like, one would be around meat, and one would be around, maybe a vegetarian view, and different ideas. And they create a story around those, and they put them online. So it's a series of kind of different ways of seeing food. And so we had I think we had 8 of those booked out. And we were about to do the first one, and then they canceled the whole thing. So, pushed off indefinitely.
Are they canceling it, or are they just pushing it back, and eventually you will still get the work?
Yeah, I think so. No, nothing's been rescheduled yet. And I know there's been a few emails about now pivoting to making it integrate what's happened. So maybe It's going to be talking about immunity or things like that, health issues. But yes, it's in everything's, TBA, I guess.
So in regards to your income right now, is that effectively just dropped to zero then?
For a month, yeah, it's picked a little bit back up, just barely through my church. She's doing entirely online sermons now, so I help them with the production once a week. But I'm part of a group of filmmakers in the area, actually all over the country. There's about 15 of us who meet for an hour on Zoom every week. We're just friends for the last 10 years, and I might be the only one who's working, maybe 2 of them, and that's barely, So yeah.
That's obviously not just you guys, but actors and all the millions of people that are involved in a production. Obviously, the bigger production, the more people that are often involved. Right. They're all out of work as well. So there's a whole big industry that's just not working at the moment.
Yeah, and nobody quite knows what to do. Although I saw an article, because I think, there's a couple things building right now. There's sort of a resentment you know, whether it's rational or not, there's sort of a resentment as in like, you know, maybe the people who want to stay home should be allowed to stay, you know, should stay home, and people who want to work can be allowed to get back to work. I kind of feel that building a little bit, and that seems fair. You know, at this point, we're starting to know more about what's happening, and so that seems sort of a fair response. And then on the other hand, there's sort of there's a strategy building for when it's, you know, game on, you know, whether that's in a month or whatever. So there's an article on Deadline that was talking about, you know, basically people who've been tested, or if there's quick tests, which I think there's some buzz about, and those will be maybe given on set for a while. So it's like you can come, you show up, you take a test that gives you a quick result in the morning, you work for the whole day, and then, you know, maybe there's some masks here and there or some extra, you know, set cleaning.
I read a really long article last night that someone sent me, this really professional thing. And actually one of the things from it was to follow what the adult industry is going to do, because they've obviously for a long time had to do HIV tests and things like that in order to be able to work. And it was just funny that they brought that up, because they've for a while have had to do tests in order to be able to work. And that's as you've mentioned before, that's kind of what's going to probably maybe happen. I think in like regards to sport, that I think it won't be long until they start, you know, Premier League soccer and all the, you know, maybe baseball and basketball and all of them. And but what they're probably going to have to do is before each game, everyone takes a test, and if you pass, then you can play, and if you can't, you can't. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that develops, because I think it's going to be a massive, you know, each industry is going to have their own rules.
Right. And the other thing is that we're hearing about now is that it was here much earlier than we thought. So they're saying New York has 21% right now. Like they're testing 21% has no symptoms and has antibodies already. And so herd immunity starts at 50%, I guess. I mean, this is all, you know, new knowledge to me. But so that's I think that's positive. I think that means in some ways it's not as bad as we thought. So maybe we'll get, you know, into the clear faster. But in the meantime, the testing seems to be the most reliable thing.
I mean, I'm reading it that obviously when we come out of lockdown and how life might change in the future, and one of the things that they are talking about is we may not be getting on as many flights and traveling around the world as much. We might get to some kind of like local normality, but traveling around the world might be a while until we do that. So have you thought about how that might affect you? And are you going to start strategizing and trying to take, you know, more relatively local work rather than saying in 2 months, I'm going to do a job in, you know, Singapore, whereas before you'd been up for doing it. Now it could be an element of risk that you're turning down that more local job, and then you may not get that one.
It's interesting. I haven't really. I think maybe it's in my nature to be a little more contrarian, but I think I feel, you know, I mean, there's always a few one-offs of healthy people, you know, coming down with a serious case, but I think, you know, I think people who are doing things right, if there is such a thing, like, you know, eating well, exercising well, sort of in the you know, vulnerable group, I'm not too worried about it at that point.
Not a case of you, but what I mean is in regards to whether you're even allowed to fly to another country and come back. That was, I suppose, I mean, as if no matter what your opinion is on it, it's more are you worried that you're not going to be able to fly in 3-4 months time still to take these jobs?
Oh, that's interesting. So they'll stay locked down. The airlines will stay locked down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the issues is the US might not allow someone who's flown to a certain country fly back into the country. That could be happening for quite a long time.
Yeah, forced vacation or something. Well, I'm not going to go on any cruise ships, I can tell you that. I'll stay away from those for a bit. Yeah, flights, that's just going to play itself out. I mean, I'll go where I can go unless there's a crazy outbreak or something somewhere. But I think I'd take my chances.
Yeah.
I don't know, but more information will help us with that. It's hard to say at this point, but
yeah. So you're just at the moment essentially just waiting to be told that you can work again, and when you can, you work, and you're not necessarily making big plans or changing your life for you're not too worried about what the future holds, really.
Well, there's so many things left to do. It's really, everything's in the dark still. I get the feeling it'll be maybe my gut is that we'll start turning things back on more like the Swedish model within a month.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good news happening, even though the curve is still pretty high, like the death rate's gone up still. I think that's things that happened weeks ago. So we're going to see that play out. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I may have to make a new game plan here if things stay the way they are. But I think I'll make that decision in the next month. In the meantime, I'm using this time to work on my website. I've got a separate website to put up and work on my own. There's things I can do to market, stay in touch with people. One of the companies I work for just sent me an email today, and they're just trying to do, it's one of the production companies I work for, and they're just trying to do something in this time. So they want everybody to send them 5 shots from their current life, like well shot shots. It could be just the family eating dinner, or a sunset in the backyard, whatever, and they're going to try and make a commercial out of it. So
there you go.
Yeah, they're just like, hey, let's do something with where we're at.
Well, you look at a lot of these TV shows where, the ones where you have, a couple of TV hosts in a studio talking about life, all these morning shows, Ryan Seacrest type shows that you get in the morning, all those ones. Now, a lot of them are just doing them from home. And you see how they've adapted. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's more of that after this as well, and how things are going to play out, and how much adaptation is going to have to be.
Well, we're still in a sweet spot, right? Unless you're in a really tough place, like, all right, we can ride this out for a little bit, but at some point we're going to run out of stuff to watch on Netflix, right? So we got to start making some new things. I mean, I've got a few series to catch up on. Better Call Saul is I'm like just into it now, so I got two or three more seasons to go. But
it's like Netflix is rubbing its hands together at the moment, making loads of money. At some point, everyone's going to be like, I've seen everything on this. We need to cancel it. So I'll be interested to see how. I mean, I just had this brainwave of stuff that they could do in the future. I was on a TV show years ago where I was on a desert island, basically the British version of Survivor. There was so much content on that show that they could have made another show out of it. And I wonder if they're going to start, like Tiger King and all this type of stuff. Often when you make a show, especially, there's so much content that you could. I wouldn't surprise me if they start diving into old shows and bringing content back from shows that you liked before. Re-edit it, exactly.
Yeah, well, and there are a lot of old movies. I guess you can go back and watch some of the classics. But at some point, I mean, I know Netflix they had a lot of productions they put on hold. So they're talking about it for sure. And there's this article I mentioned earlier on Deadline that basically mapped out what Hollywood's going to look like for at least a year, which is, they'll pay more attention to cleaning and who's sick and who's not and whatever. But it's probably gonna take a year to really get back to full speed. Maybe 6 months, we'll see.
And what would they do with like movies and all sorts where like halfway through they had to stop all of this? TV shows where people are going to look possibly different. Age. There's going to be issues.
Well, it's not too bad. 6 months isn't too bad, or 3 months, whatever.
There might be some ladies that have got pregnant and they've got this massive bump 6 months later. It's going to be interesting. You're watching this movie and suddenly she's got this big bump. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, you know what everybody did on their downtime.
Yeah, exactly.
CGI will fix that.
That's true. So how does someone, because I know you do great work. I've seen it on your website and it's, I mean, I do videos, but you I'm like, they're like, okay, yours is just incredible. And when I once asked you for a quote, I was just like, okay, you do incredible stuff. So if someone wants an incredible shot for their business or to, produce something, how do they get hold of you?
Oh, you can go to my personal website right now. I have two websites, my personal site and then my production company, but I just launched that company. So the website is not up yet.
Yeah.
A ton of my work is on my own personal site.
So what is your own personal site?
Yeah, it's just my name, but I have a weird spelling of Jeycob. So it's Jeycob, and then my last name's Carlson with a C.
And then you on social media at all?
I'm on the same name on Instagram and on mainly Instagram.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's so interesting to hear, not just about you, but about a whole industry and what's happening. And fingers crossed, it won't be that long until you can go back to work and we can start enjoying new shows on Netflix.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm feeling optimistic. We're going to get through this, and I think sooner rather than later. So
fingers crossed. Take care, mate. Have a good one.
Thank you. Talk soon.